Well, my name is Stephen Luff. I am a marriage and family therapist. I do work with Craig Gross at Fireproof Ministries, XXX Church. I also have a center in Los Angeles called the Faith and Sex Center. If you want to go to www.faithandsexcenter.com, you can find some resources there. Now, we did a whiteboard session last month. It was posted on Craig's XXX Church website, and it was about something that was very important. I felt very important to me. It was about learning resources to regulate your emotions and how porn and sex ties into that. So Craig thought it was a good idea, and the response was strong, so that we decided to do more questions. And Craig has this question for this month. He gave me this: what are the psychological effects of masturbation? So to be honest, when I received that question, I actually pushed back, and I'm like, can we talk about, and I had all these other ideas that I wanted to do. And he's like, no, we need to do this one. Apparently this is a question that comes through frequently. Craig is off camera right now, and honestly, I don't know where to aim in answering this question. Craig and I were just talking about this off camera, that he suggested, well, why don't you attack this as if it were a client coming to you? And if a client came to me with this question, what are the psychological effects of masturbation? I would sit back and find out about that person, find out about that person's life, find out what role masturbation has played in his or her life, usually men I work with, and then get deeper and deeper into who that person is and what this means to him or her. So Craig's off camera, and I want Craig to ask me questions or lead me to help me start on what may be really relevant about this question for most people.
I think most people are asking this question trying to justify their behavior. So it's just like, hey, is this a better way to say it? I'm in your office. What's the big deal with this? Hey, I'm single, or my wife won't have sex with me. I mean, come on, is this going to kill anybody? Just tell me, therapist, I'm going to be okay.
In sex addiction recovery, like Sex Addicts Anonymous, they have here's the whiteboard. They have what is called the 3 circles. Sex addiction is a behavioral addiction, like food is a behavioral addiction, right? We are created to stay alive and to procreate. Biologically, that's what we were designed to do, which we weren't biologically designed to inject heroin into our bloodstreams, or, mind you, we weren't biologically designed to sit in front of a computer and open up constant windows or number of windows to find that perfect arousal template that gets us off maximally to get a high. We weren't designed for the world that we're actually in. So if you're dealing with behavioral addictions, and we'll say sex addiction, Sex Addicts Anonymous has a 3-circle process. So inner, middle, and outer. Your question was, masturbating to porn. There are some people, so inner circle is stuff that's completely off the table. Inner circle is behavior that has led to your life becoming unmanageable, right? My boss caught me jacking off to porn. I lost my job. And once I lost my job, my wife then caught me masturbating to porn. She's mad at me. I'm now out of the house. I don't have a job. That's unmanageability. I got arrested because I was hiring prostitutes on the street. So unmanageable is different for everyone, but your inner circle goes anything, you would put in your inner circle anything that has led your life to being unmanageable. Middle is sort of gray area. It's stuff that you can get into, but it could lead to inner circle behavior, so you need to be really mindful of that. Outer circle behavior is whatever gives your life meaning and purpose and happiness and joy, work, relationships with friends, with family, with spouses, etc., etc. Now, you asked me about masturbation. Some people put porn, we'll just put inner, porn there, right? Some people may put in their middle circle masturbation without porn. Which, if I'm not careful, if I keep masturbating maybe too much and I start kind of drifting into wanting to look at porn, then I need to take a hard look at my masturbation. So outer circle behavior, as I said, is sort of, they call it also top line behavior, stuff that you can do. I don't need to list that, meaningful things. So you'd ask me about masturbation. I'm helping people, when I sit with them as clients, kind of parse out, well, what does masturbation mean? Because you can masturbate without porn. Now, if you're masturbating to porn, that's a different thing neurobiologically, because as I noted, we live in a 21st century world with, with brains that were developed biologically millions of years ago. Brains are not designed for the world that we live in.
So you're saying right now though, a hard no to masturbation with porn, but a little wobbly on
me or anyone. You're saying
anybody.
Our hypothetical client.
You're saying.
Well, some people may say, I've got some clients.
So I want to know what you say. Masturbation with porn, no or yes. Are you going to tell your clients to stop masturbating to porn?
I'm going to help my clients figure out what has led their lives to being unmanageable, and that they need to figure out what they need to do for themselves. That's why this is a huge. What are the effects? Well, what is masturbation? Because we found out in talking about this that you are kind of equating masturbation with porn, and I'm trying to separate these things. Are you masturbating on a subway? Well, the psychological effects of masturbating on a subway, what are the effects of that and what caused that? That's different from masturbating quietly in your bathroom with no porn, right? Every couple weeks. And I would ask, how often are you masturbating? Because you may be masturbating without porn, but if you're masturbating to the point where you're hurting yourself, right? I've got some clients in a rehab who, until they've been in my groups, didn't realize I masturbate like 4 times a day. And then masturbation, so this is kind of what I help clients get to. Are you using masturbation or sex or orgasm as a way to manage your emotions? Or are you using it on occasion? Do you masturbate on occasion because there is a physiological buildup and a need for release, and you don't have a partner or whatever it may be? And on occasion you do that. But if you're masturbating, I would say, 2-3 times a day, then you need to take a look at it. And certainly if you're masturbating to the point where you're hurting yourself. Whether you're masturbating to porn or whether or not you're masturbating to your own images, the important litmus test of whether or not it is a problem is whether or not you are masturbating to get away from uncomfortable emotions, or whether or not it's a physiological release. And for most men, it's all men, who've grown up in this era and with porn available to them since the age of 12, they don't know their emotional state. They don't know the difference between happy porn, sad porn, anxious porn. It's just porn. They don't know that there are these emotions that are underneath it. And what I try to help them do, and this is why sobriety is important, is you're not going to get to that, to know these feelings, especially if you haven't put a label on these feelings since a very young age. And then you started using sex and porn at the age of 12, 11, 12 to mask them. You don't even know your emotional state, which means you need to go sober for some amount of time, certainly a year, before you start going, oh my gosh, there are these feelings that I have, and I guess that's anxiety. I guess I'm trying to control things that I can, and it makes me really uneasy. I'm trying to control my relationship with my mom, and I can't because there are 2 of us in the dynamic. And then it used to be I would just go to my bedroom and jack off to porn. Now porn has caused the problem, or masturbation has caused the problem. I need to figure out different ways to manage these feelings. But the first step is to know that you have the feelings, and a year or more of sobriety. I've even recommended to some clients have done this, whether they're coming off of of drugs, alcohol, or sex addiction recommended that for a year they don't have sex, don't have relationships, certainly don't use porn, and not even masturbate. And you find out a lot about yourself because they often think, but this is a physiological need. Well, what is a physiological need? And what is, I've so hardwired the neurons in my brain to behave a certain way that I don't know what is what.
So would you say that the effects of masturbation, of not knowing why you're doing it, is probably going to be the most damaging? If you go your whole life and you never get to the bottom of why am I using porn, why am I masturbating, is that going to be the biggest thing that you're missing out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be self-discovery and your own journey of knowing who you are as a person. But if you continue to use substances, and sex and porn are behavioral addictions or behavioral substances, you keep using substances of abuse or substances abusively, and you're not going to know yourself because you are someone you're not. When you're in that hypnotic state of acting out sexually, you're in another realm, man. You are just in fantasy land. You are physiologically and psychologically checked out. And until you sit in these experiences, life experiences without substances, you're not going to know who you are. And often people are very afraid of discovering who they are. I had a client actually this week. He has been addicted to heroin, meth as well. And this is at a rehab. And he has been in my sex addiction groups. They're just groups that discuss sexual behavior. He's been in them for the past 2-3 months, twice a week. And there was a great moment where finally I was able to say to him, I really kind of explained and sort of laid out what happens when you're young and you're neglected or abused, and then what happens when you're 12 and sex hits, and how porn and masturbation become things that you rely on to manage your emotional state. Last week he had a moment of clarity of realizing, oh my God, what I thought was my natural drive to sex was really me just running from myself. And I can see this week, this was yesterday, he had a moment where he just said, I feel like now that I've realized this about how I've used sex, I feel like I'm staring into this black hole or abyss. Like, I don't know who I am. That's the starting point. I don't know where I am. And hopefully you've got a loving church or a loving community around you to say, keep pushing into the darkness. We're here. You're going to find yourself. You're going to find your true self instead of this mask that you've been wearing and going around pleasing everyone else your whole life.
So the last thing you'd say on this, if somebody's sitting in your office, besides being sober, hey, when you have that urge to go do this, when you want to go pursue this, try and refrain, but how can you start figuring out this self-discovery? You know, especially as guys, it's just like, oh, well, what do you mean anxious porn or sad porn? I mean, from journaling that down to just, what would you say? Besides, oh, just don't do it. Like, how's that person going to figure out what is driving this?
Right. Well, okay, so we have a central nervous system. I'll go black. We have a central nervous system. And that's like our brain, spine, and all of the nerves that come out of the spine that give the body information about its surroundings, right? That's our central nervous system. And then we have, and this is the relevant part, we have an autonomic nervous system. So auto, AUTONOMIC, autonomic nervous system. And this is the important part. There are two parts to our autonomic nervous system. And this is the last big thing you need to know. So here's our brain, if you will. We have a parasympathetic nervous system and a sympathetic nervous system. Our sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. And our parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest. Our body, so this nervous system is talking to all of our organs, to our heart, to our kidneys, to our penises and our vaginas, right? The autonomic nervous system is what regulates our emotional state. What tells our body, if something happens in our environment, it tells our body whether we need to fight or rest. When a fight or flight response happens, our heart beats faster, right? Our mouth starts to get dry. Our blood starts flowing to the muscles because we're ready to get the hell out of there. When our parasympathetic nervous system is activated, we know we're safe. Our mouth can water because we can start to eat. Our stomach starts to produce juices. Our heart rate lowers. So your question was, how do we get to all of this? Until you start paying attention to the signals that your body is giving you, and you recognize, oh my gosh, I am constantly in fight or flight mode. I am constantly afraid of my surroundings, and my anxiety levels are always very, very high. Some of the recovery process will be to look at your childhood to discover the ways in which you experienced a lot of threat when you were a child, the ways in which maybe you were neglected, you were abused. So what we need to do once we start feeling these fight or flight signs, instead of using porn, which we're using porn for our sympathetic, we feel fight or flight, we start jacking off the porn. Here's our penis down here. We start jacking off the porn to calm ourselves down. Well, the more you jack off the porn to calm yourself down, the more you are not allowing other parts of your system to respond to the environment differently. Craig, do you have a thought about what I'm talking about? This is not, So what I'm saying is that we need to be able to understand that our bodies respond to our environment in biological ways and find new ways to manage our emotions than the old ways. Now, I'm going to put this out there. So this was maybe a lot of stuff. For those of you, as you really look at this, look at your behavior with sex, and you see the trouble it's gotten you into, you may discover, my parents weren't around when I was a kid. I got yelled at a lot. I got beat. I was sexually abused. So you think that tackling this whole system, especially alone, or even if you're tackling your challenges on your own, or not on your own, in group or in recovery groups, is difficult. There is a treatment called Emdr. And you can find, hopefully, someone in your community. It's called eye movement desensitization and reintegration, I believe. And this is for people who've experienced trauma. And it is, you do it with a therapist, and you can look it up. I can write out the letter, write out what this is, but you just type in EMDR and look for some therapists and maybe read about it. And a lot of my clients have been able to integrate their traumatic experiences from childhood into their memories, into their bodies, and they've been able to put those experiences that happened to them in childhood back where they belong as a memory, and start to live in the present, very presently, very engaged, not relying on sex and masturbation to manage their emotions, and start to have productive, happy lives. Look that up, see if you can find it in your community, and I really hope that this was helpful for everyone who was watching it. Thank you.